guys, Louie here with a little tidbit of silver to entice you. This video is step 1 in silver stacking, and I'm going to call this taking account of your assets before you start to purchase silver. And here's some cool things that I've bought over the years. Just a hodgepodge of different silver that I have collected. These are cool. These Sterling Warrior series from Bullion Exchanges. But I'm not so much here for the silver show off. What I want to do is I want to go through a couple of examples of how I would take stock of my balance sheet if I were just getting into silver stacking. Okay, isn't that cool? That's 50 years of Alpo dog food. Gotta love that. All right, so here we go. I have 3 different scenarios here, and what I want to do is I want to go through potentially your scenarios. Maybe I'll hit one of yours in terms of your assets and liabilities and how much of them can be allocated to silver if you have a conservative precious metals portfolio. This is for people who want to hedge their assets for inflation, but don't want to go all in on precious metals. And I know some of you do, but this is for the average person. I recommend keeping less than 10% of your total assets in precious metals, although I do think now is a great time to buy both gold and silver. So here's 3 different scenarios, and I've broken the assets and liabilities between short-term and long-term. Okay, short-term and long-term. A long-term liability could be the mortgage on your house, could be your student loan debt, etc. Your long-term assets would be those in your 401k or long-term investments of some kind. And short-term assets are primarily cash in the bank. Short-term liabilities would be credit card debt, right? So here is, let's call this example number 1. This individual has got, probably has a mortgage. They've also started saving for the long term in their 401k, for example. And they've got about $10,000 of cash in the bank to carry them for at least 3 months of living expenses if there should be some kind of a shutdown or loss of income or emergencies. Some of that cash should be in your house and actually in cash in hand in case there is a bank holiday. So for this particular example, I'm going to ignore the long-term debt because many of us have mortgages and so forth. But if your total assets are $20,000, then my recommendation would be no more than $2,000 in precious metals. All right, so in this example, I think you'd be cleared to buy about $2,000 of precious metals. That could be about 4 tubes of silver eagles or 3 tubes of eagles and a little bit of gold, etc. And then a portion of your income every month, 90% of it into your long-term savings and perhaps 10% of it back into precious metals, right? Put that down there to remind us of what the goal is. That is scenario number 1. All right, let's go to scenario number 2. All right, here we have an individual, perhaps a little bit older. They also have a mortgage or student loan debt. They've got about $50,000 socked away in their 401k or long-term investments. They have $5,000 in living expenses, which might be a little light for this individual. Perhaps that should go up before you start stacking. And they've got about $10,000 in credit card debt. So the recommendation here would be to work really aggressively to eliminate your short-term credit card debt. If you were going to stack, I would put most of your free money into that, reducing that 20% interest burden. And you could build a little bit of this, but that would be your goal right here. In this particular case, with $55,000, well, actually, what this person should do is try to take some of their $50,000 long term, if there are no penalties on it, and extinguish that short-term debt. So if you had $55,000 minus 10, that'd be $45,000 in net worth, and therefore you could stack about $4,500 in precious metals. Okay, that's scenario number 2. And now the last scenario. All right, here we are. We are just getting going, right? We have no credit card debt, no long-term liabilities, no savings, and no short-term. Okay, here's how I would approach this. It's just way too early to get into precious metals for you. What you want to do is allocate part of your income, assuming you have income. You want to avoid liability completely if you can. You want to next build your short-term cash fund so you can live for a few months if you lose your income. And you also want to build your long-term. And I would say after you have none of this, you've got a few $1,000s of short-term assets. As you stack, 90% of your money should go into your long-term stock investments, stocks, bonds, whatever you consider a long-term conservative traditional investment, and about 10% of your income into precious metals. All right, so I hope that's helpful. It's just a little primer on what I would do if I were in any of those scenarios. Another little look at some of the beautiful silver I've collected over the years. This was made by a friend of mine, Silverback Stacker. One of his first pieces, actually. All right. And let's see what else we have here. These, I believe, little guns are made by Monarch Precious Metals. Of course, we have an American Silver Eagle, which is always a great base of any pyramid of stacking. Excellent, excellent. And then some more exotic stuff like a Pamp bar. Don't stack these. That's exotic and interesting, but not for stacking. Here we have Canadian Wildlife Series, all spotted up, as you might expect. You wouldn't expect to get more than spot for that at the LCS. Here is a beautiful trade unit, nicely toned. I believe those are from the 80s. I don't see a date on that, but those are nice if you can get those. But this kind of stuff is for the perimeter of your stack. Majority of your stack you would want to be generic bullion, purchased hopefully around spot, and probably Silver Eagles, which are always tradable at the LCS for a fair premium over spot. Okay, let me know your thoughts if you like this video, and if you have any advice for new stackers. Louie signing out. Bye now.